All yours.
Yay. Well, thank you everyone for making the time today for this session. Hopefully you'll walk away from today with a better understanding about how to build your profile on LinkedIn and then how to use this to kind of take that next step in your journey into a career. This is meant to be an interactive session and we do have quite a large group. So if you do have questions, please come off mute and ask them to me, or you can also pop them in the chat. There will be this presentation sent around as a follow-up with a little bit of a framework to help you kind of work through how you want to bring your personal brand to life on the LinkedIn platform. But yeah, as I said, it is meant to be an interactive session. So please feel free to jump off mute and ask a question, because I'm sure if you have a question, there'll be other people on the call today that have one as well. I'm going to be jumping between a couple of screens today. So I do have a very short presentation just to set things up, but the majority of today is actually going to be spent on the LinkedIn platform, just showing you and talking you through a few things. Before I start, with a little hands up symbol, does everybody here already have a LinkedIn profile, already looking for a LinkedIn profile? Yeah, there's a few hands. There's some people that already have LinkedIn. Great. Does anybody have other social media profiles? Facebook, Instagram, TikTok? Yeah, a few more hands going up for the other social profiles as well. So the first thing to kind of point out with LinkedIn is this is really where you want to bring your professional self to life. Everything on our platform is very much geared around you as a professional, your professional interests, and your professional network. I don't know about you, but I have some people that I've worked in with the past that I absolutely want to keep as a professional contact, but I don't really want them on my Instagram or my Facebook. So the way to think of this is definitely your professional network. You will notice as you go on platform 2, the conversation is completely different on LinkedIn to any other social media platform. And definitely the types of content that you see are going to be related to the things that you're interested in professionally and really what you follow and also what your network is really interested in. So I'm going to share my screen now and we're just going to go through a few different things. I'm just going to get this back up big. Give me 1 second so I can see as many people as I possibly can. Can everybody see my screen? Yep, perfect. I love the little thumbs up popping up too. This is great. So as I said, today we're going to go through how to build your personal brand on LinkedIn and really start to think about, you know, as you're in your last few years of study, how you can start thinking about what's next for you after you kind of complete your education. So the first thing I'm going to speak about today is how to either build your profile or optimize your profile on LinkedIn. We're going to talk about the importance of your headshot and cover image, how to nail your headline, which is that little thing that appears under your name, how to write a compelling summary, detail your past work experience, and really go through the differences between past work experience on LinkedIn and your CV, because they are very different things. Really to make sure that you're starting to get some skills and endorsements up there, and how to include all those other experiences that you had to kind of show employers or potential employers what you're on about. Sorry? Oh, I think that was an accident. Saxon, did you have a question?
That's okay. That's okay. Sorry about that.
That's okay. I just didn't want to get you not having a question. So to go through this, rather than kind of explain it in theory, I'm actually going to jump in and talk you through my LinkedIn profile, just to kind of bring this to life. So just give me a second. I have to escape out of the presentation and go to LinkedIn. Can everyone still see my LinkedIn profile now? Yeah, great. So this is what your LinkedIn profile page looks like. You can absolutely add, change, or I guess control anything on this page. The other thing that you can also do, which I also get questions about, is how to understand how to make your profile public and what people can see online. So absolutely, if you click on this edit your public profile and URL, you can actually control at a very detailed level what people see. So if you have any concerns about what people are seeing on your profile or what you want them to be able to see about you, you can absolutely control this down to every single level of your profile. But we're just going to start today with the basics around how to build a profile. So my number one tip, because it is what makes a huge first impression, is to have a great headshot of yourself. Now, this can be a photo of you. Gone are the days where it had to be you dressed up in a suit and tie. It can be a little bit more casual, but definitely include a headshot, which really kind of shows people who you are. If you're from maybe a more creative background, you might want to have this as like an avatar image, or you might want to kind of show yourself in a light that kind of really kind of tells a story about who you are. So absolutely think about what you're going to put as that image of yourself. The next thing that I would absolutely say to edit is this background image here. This really gives you the opportunity to tell a visual story about yourself, kind of either what you're interested in, anything that kind of brings up kind of where you want to go in your career, or even might be a connection to other organizations that you are working for or doing work with. So absolutely, these two things make a huge difference in terms of the visual impact of your profile. Does that all make sense with these two elements here? You just edit them by clicking on the edit buttons or on the image. The next thing that I want to talk about is what we call your headline. And this is what actually appears underneath your name. Now, there's three different things that you can choose to have as your headline. First and foremost, you can choose to have your current job title. The second thing you can choose to do is highlight some words or some values that speak to yourself. So I personally don't have my job title underneath my name. I just have, I guess, words that explain the value that I bring to an organization. And the reason for that for me personally is I actually hold a number of roles, and I don't really want to identify with either one of them because, you know, if it's a board position that I have that someone's coming to my profile for, I don't want them to get confused with just a job title for LinkedIn, for example. So absolutely, you can have something there that kind of explains the value that you bring, some values or some keywords about yourself. The other thing that you can do is use this to kind of explain a little bit about your personality. So one of my colleagues actually has under her profile, crazy dog mum, digital nomad, and senior account director for LinkedIn. So you can kind of start to bring a little bit of personality into this profile. If you're a student who's just graduating and you're kind of wanting to tell employers about who you are, you might want to even have a fun little sentence here about, you know, just graduated, looking for job opportunities in X, or just graduated, excited to make an impact in the world with X. So just think about how this can start to tell the story of who you are at a glance. So that's your headline. The other thing that I would absolutely look at doing once you're ready to start actively looking for roles is turn on open to work. So this is where you can select that you're open to finding a new job. The reason why this is so important is this is what recruiters look for. So for those of you who don't know, LinkedIn actually is a software as a service business. We actually don't make money off our members. We make money off the software that we sell HR teams and HR agencies. So what we do here is by identifying that you're open to work, you're telling recruiters that you're looking for a role. So when they run a search around available talent in a particular talent pool, you're going to come up as someone that they should contact because you're actually open to hearing from them about opportunities. When you click on open to work, I'm just going to show you here, you can tell us about the types of work you're looking for, your locations. You can select either where you are now in Canterbury, or you can choose another location across New Zealand or Australia, the type of work that you're looking for. And then you can add this to your profile as well. So you can also decide who sees this, all LinkedIn members, so putting a little open to work, or that just recruiters only. So this is how you can really start to kind of identify that you're open to work. The other thing that you might want to do.
Sorry, that was from last week. I was actually in my room. Do you want to chat about anything, or are you just dribbling along?
Give me a
Daniel,
second.
I think you should go on mute. Daniel.
Hi, Daniel. Could you put yourself on? Thank you.
Thanks.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. The other thing that you can also add in here is if you are looking to provide sort of services. So if you want to start your sort of little own business, you can tell us about what you do. And this can signal to people that, you know, you're looking to kind of gain work in a certain area, or you're open to contracting in a certain area.
Danika, there's just one question on the chat from Danny. For the headline, he said, would you suggest putting your qualification in your headline?
Some people do, but don't forget there's a whole area around qualifications at the bottom. It depends on what that qualification is. So often with people in the medical profession, they absolutely will put a qualification prefix under their headline. But generally speaking, with other types of professions, people don't tend to do that. Just because there is a whole section on qualifications. And if you think about how a recruiter searches, they actually search on skill first, and then they will search on qualification as a second. And often qualifications aren't a prerequisite for roles. They're a kind of requirement that, you know, comes in as part of that mix with the skills and experience that you're bringing.
100%. Thank you.
As we scroll down your profile, the other thing that you can choose to do is feature content. So this might be things that you've written or posts that you've done. So I absolutely recommend, if you are getting good reactions or it's something that you want to talk to people about or show people about, absolutely you can start to feature that content in that top profile by just clicking on the featured content button. You can add a post, newsletter, media, whatever it is that you want to add. The next thing that's really important about your profile is your about section. So the way I like to describe your about section is this is absolutely about providing people with a snapshot of who you are, what you do, the value you bring, and if you're searching for a role, what type of role that you're looking for and why. Always think of the profile as what you're going to be saying in your first 150 characters as well, because this is what we call being above the fold. So what appears before you hit more, but more importantly on mobile, what you see when your profile comes up in the about section. So you can see here my profile is quite short. And my number one tip is to maybe write 1 sentence, 2 sentences max around who you are, what you do, the value you bring, and why you're searching for what type of role you're looking for and why. So maximum maybe 4 paragraphs. There's no particular order that this has to go in. Oh. So this is really about you and how you want to talk about your story, about yourself. So you can see here, I start with the value that I bring. Then I talk about what I do, and from there. So I think this is really, once again, a personal decision. If you are looking for a role, you might want to kick off with, you know, I'm looking for a role in X. This is the value that I'm going to bring to the organization. This is who I am. And this is, you know, the skills and experience that I bring. So definitely have a think about this in context of your story. Just always remember it needs to cover who you are, what you do, the value you bring, and any of the whys that you're on platform. Is there any questions about the about section? Because I think this sometimes gets confused. This is not where you need to list every job you've ever had. This is not where you need to list every skill, because there's other parts of the profile, but it's really definitely to tell the story about who you are. Any questions? No?
Questions about it, guys? Danika, would you recommend having something on that section about maybe, hey, connect with me or send me a message?
Absolutely.
Or kind of
yeah. So when I've previously been looking for a role, I put on there, you know, this is the type of role I'm looking for. If you are looking for someone with X, Y, and Z, please connect with me or reach out anytime. So absolutely asking for interaction in this section is a really great thing to do if you're actively seeking a role or you're actively looking to be, you know, reached out to for contracting opportunities.
Thank you.
No problem. The next section that everyone loves is experience. So this is probably where the biggest deviation happens from a CV to a LinkedIn profile. On a CV, you'll often get people say, only include your last few roles. Nobody wants your entire work history. And you'll often have people say on a CV that you have a format around your responsibilities and highlighting those on your CV in bullet point form, any of your key achievements in bullet point form. That is absolutely true for a CV. And actually with a CV, you might even tailor that to the types of roles that you're looking for. For example, if you're an engineering student and you're looking for work in civil engineering within specifically tunneling, you might have a CV that's really going to highlight maybe the subjects that you did in tunneling versus a CV if you're going for a job that's in road infrastructure or construction for major buildings or projects like that. So your CV, you might tailor differently. You might highlight different aspects of what you've done or things that you've studied. You'll absolutely, with roles, go into details around your responsibilities and your key achievements. But your LinkedIn profile is there to provide a snapshot. And the way that I like to talk about what you include in your profile section, because it is a lot shorter if I just I'll open a few roles here. It's really only a couple of paragraphs. And the idea with this section, or when you're talking about your experience, is really to highlight what it is you did in that role and the value that you brought to that organization. The other top tip I have when you're writing your experience is you don't need to talk about the organization, particularly if it's well known. So you'll see on my profile here, I don't have any information about who LinkedIn is a company, because if someone wants to find that out, they can actually just click on the LinkedIn logo and they're going to be taking, oops, sorry, this is going to, because it's my company, sorry, it's actually going to take you to a page about LinkedIn. So, you know, if I was actually a candidate or someone who was looking at LinkedIn, it would take me here to a career page all about LinkedIn. So this is why I say to people with your profile, you don't need to talk about the organization in the about section. The only exception to that is if it's a smaller organization where people don't know much about it. So an example on my profile here would be the Sydney Fringe Festival. However, I only have one sentence about the organization. People can click in and actually see who the Sydney Fringe Festival is. But because it's maybe not as well known, I just have a single line here that says, you know, it's the largest independent arts festival. It's over 400 events over 30 days. And this is what the organization does. And then I go on to talk about my role at that organization. So my number one tip when you're thinking about your experience is the value that you brought to the organization and what you did in that role in a couple of sentences. So really the top level things rather than the lovely list that you would put on your CV. Is there any other questions about the experience section in terms of writing before I give a couple of extra tips here?
Just one on the chat. Would I put down jobs that I've held in the past that are not in the same industry that I'm looking for?
1,000,000%. So I'm going to be a little bit embarrassed now because I'm pretty sure everyone on this call is about half my age. But my work experience on LinkedIn goes back to the 90s and it covers off a whole range of roles. So believe it or not, I used to be a photographer. Obviously nothing to do with my role at the moment. I've worked in retail. If I scroll up some of my profile to some of the other things, I was a magazine editor, obviously not doing that now. So you can see my profile has a whole heap of roles on it that actually aren't anything to do with my current position. LinkedIn is where you talk about your whole history. It's not just what you would talk about when you're applying for a job. I completely understand on a CV, you might be looking for a role in a different industry and you would want to frame your CV in context of the new industry you're looking for. LinkedIn is where you talk about your whole work experience. The other thing that you can do within LinkedIn, which is also really valuable, is you can actually add in career breaks as well. So this is where you might have had some time out of the workforce for anything. So if you look at the types of things, you know, we want to make sure that you're highlighting gaps in your CV because it's really, really normal to have gaps off for things like career transition. So if you are transitioning out of careers and you've gone into study, you can absolutely put in there that you've like had a bit of a career transition, gap year, you might have personal goal pursuit, professional development, relocation. There's a whole heap of things that you might want to do in here that talks to kind of any sort of career break you've had. Here you might want to put a description around, you know, that you took time out to study. You don't always have to update your profile here, but then you might also want to like add some media in about that career break and what it was that you did on that career break or why that was important to you. So a lot of people take time off to be parents, they take time off to look after older family members, they take time off to travel, like really normal. I've taken a few gaps in my career to do a bit of travel, and definitely I've taken some time off to kind of pursue personal goals or professional development and study in different areas. So make sure that you include that on your profile as well.
Danika, we've got another question about how about voluntary involvement. Students are often involved in committees, you know, society. Yeah.
There's a whole section which we'll get to. I'll talk to it now, actually, called volunteering. I would make sure any volunteering work you do is 100% captured on here, whether that's in, you know, the local community, whether you do work with your local sporting club, whether it's things like working with the P&C at your kids' schools. It might be, you know, an organisation that you volunteer for once a week. Absolutely include that in the volunteering area. Because once again, this just starts to build a picture about who you are and the values and what you bring to the community and an organisation. And you actually never know where this connection might lead. I have so many examples of people I've told to fill out this volunteering section that then tend to make connections either with recruiters or potential hiring managers based on something that they're both interested in. One of the other organisations I do some work with in Australia as part of our social impact program here at LinkedIn is called Fitted for Work. And this really helps women who've taken significant breaks in their career, either to do caring or look after children. So they've been, you know, full-time carers for elderly parents or, you know, family members with disabilities, or, you know, they've taken time out, and we're talking 5 to 10 years plus. And one of them during that time had spent, I think it was 7 of their 10 years working with their local surf lifesaving club. And she went for an interview with someone who was also really into surf lifesaving and actually being the president of their club at some point. And they were able to make a connection around surf lifesaving in Australia that really got the conversation flowing and gave them something else to talk about. So volunteering experience can be just as important as work experience as you have, because if you can make a genuine connection around shared values, shared interests, it's really going to put you in a great position to have a more deep and meaningful conversation with a potential employer, but also make those connections as well.
Awesome, thanks.
That's okay. Are there any sort of other questions about experience or volunteering before I move on? In the chat, no? Okay, great.
Sorry, this is
Salis, yeah? No?
sorry, that was an accident.
Oh, that's okay. Just checking. The next section I wanted to talk about is education. So once again, this appears on your profile. Once again, unlike a CV, always include all of your education on here. So I have a few different educations on here. All of them are not related to my role, like journalism probably doesn't mean anything to my current role, but I absolutely include that on my LinkedIn profile. Probably my economics qualifications don't have much to do with that either. But it's definitely important to once again include all of your qualifications on your role. So even if this is a qualification you've used for a past career or qualifications that you did prior to studying at Canterbury, make sure you include this on your profile, because once again, this always builds up a picture around who you are, what you've done and how you've studied. So definitely including this in the education section. So yeah, once again, differs from a CV where you might just want to call out the primary education that you've had for the role that you're applying for. Yeah, sorry, Sahar. Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry. We've got a question from Saxon. Would it be fine to also include group work or assignments completed while at university in the education section? Is that right, Saxon? Or were you?
Yep, that's right.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so basically here you can put any sort of like activities or any descriptions that you want. It is a little bit limited, but you can absolutely also link media as well. So yeah, if you've got a particular group assignment, you've got a published article, you know, your student paper has covered you in some way, you can absolutely include that with the media, or you can add that in a description if you wanted to call out anything there. The other thing that I will also tell people to also make sure that they're, I guess, adding to their profile regularly is any other licenses or certifications that you have. Once again, this could be really related to your role. I'm just thinking in, you know, engineering, you know, having a heavy truck license can actually be a real benefit, particularly if you're looking at going on site or any sort of site management roles. If you're in commerce, you might want to include some qualifications there around things like Power BI, not really related to your role, but, you know, if you're looking for any role within business or commerce, having things like Power BI, having sort of Salesforce qualifications on there, you know, those are tools that you're going to be using every day to kind of communicate within the organizations that you're working with. So absolutely include those sort of qualifications, certifications, or credentials on your LinkedIn profile as well. The other great thing about completing licenses or certifications is this might throw up skills that you might also want to add to your profile. So one of our next sections we'll talk about is skills, and it can be one of those sections you're like, I'm not sure what I'm going to do here. It can just give you some really good ideas around the skills that you have. I obviously add stuff all the time because I've got LinkedIn Learning and I'm always doing courses on LinkedIn Learning to add to my skill set. And it's really about me showcasing kind of the learning that I'm doing. I've spoken about volunteering. The next section I wanted to talk about is skills. So this is a section that is really built out around the skills that you have. You can take a skill quiz if you're not sure. You can kind of look here and have a look at the types of skills that you might want to get added to your profile. So I can do SEO, Agile, Google Analytics. You can see the skills that come up for me on my skills assessment. You can also add skills by just editing here. Sorry, my internet's a bit slow. So you can edit your skills here. You can do industry knowledge, tools, and technology and interpersonal skills. So you can absolutely look at the skills that you have. I have got endorsements for a lot of my skills, mainly because people comes up in their profile and they endorse me. But you can absolutely see here the types of skills that you can add to your profile. The reason why this is important is this really starts to highlight where your skills sit on your jobs profile and your jobs match. So I'm just going to quickly show you when you're scrolling through, your LinkedIn newsfeed, what you'll start to see is not only content from the people that you're related to or connected to. Come on, it's not going to come up now.
Danika, while you're scrolling, just a question. I often get asked by students, hey, is there a magic number of skills that you're supposed to have? Is more or less good? Or
No, absolutely not. We limit it to 50 skills on the platform because there's two ways that we pull skills off your profile. One is called explicit data and one is implicit data. So explicit is things that are actually called out in your profile that you're writing down. And then implicit data is things that might take from your profile based on your experience and the keywords or the words, or I guess the series of words that are written in your profile. So for example, on my profile, I don't have software as a service listed anywhere on my profile. However, LinkedIn is a software as a service company. And by the virtue of the fact that I work from them in an account director role means I absolutely have that skill. So if a recruiter was doing a search for someone with SaaS skills, I would still come up, even though that's not explicitly called out on my profile. Similarly, if I don't have nonprofit management on my profile anywhere as well, but the fact that I'm on the board of 2 nonprofits, I would absolutely have that skill. So it kind of works through that for you.
Thank you.
So,
one question, sorry,
yeah.
Danika, just another question on the chat, back to education section. Would you include high school for a student or graduate?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I don't put my high school in because it makes me feel old, but.
Amy, I hope that answers your question.
I feel like anything that happened in the 90s didn't happen anymore anyway, too long ago.
That's not true.
The other way to look at skills would absolutely be to have a look at roles. So I'm just going to click on a job here that's come up as a recommendation for me on my role. I'm just going to scroll down to the bottom. I actually have premium turned on at the moment. And what this does here is actually start to highlight the skills that are required for this role. So let's just say I am not sure about what type of roles I'm looking for, what type of skills I need to include on my profile. I can absolutely just jump onto some job ads and I can start to get an idea about the kind of skills or the 10 skills that, roles like this are looking for. I might want to click on another role, which is just above it, for example, and I can scroll down here and I can once again see the types of skills that they're requesting for this role. So this is just a really easy, cheap way on the jobs to have a look at the types of skills that employers are after or are calling out in their own job ads. A really easy way to get endorsements or get people talking about the skills that you have is ask all your fellow students to endorse you for skills, or lecturers as well. So really starting to kind of reach out to them and get endorsements for your skills can make a really big difference as well. The next section, which I think is really worthwhile doing as well, is getting recommendations. So this is where you'd be reaching out to someone to ask for a recommendation. So this is a really great one to reach out to maybe lecturers that, have you in their course and that, have seen the work that you do. This might be from a current employer, or this might be from a previous colleague from a role, or somebody, from the volunteering work that you're doing at that organization. Asking for a recommendation just gives people the opportunity to kind of get a bit of insight into who you are and, what you do. As you can see, I haven't looked for a job since 2020, so this hasn't been updated. But absolutely looking at really where you can get recommendations from, because this really gives you that kind of second level of sort of endorsement on who you are and what value you're going to bring to an organization. Does anyone have any questions about recommendations? No? Okay, great. And then the last section that you can fill out is awards and honours. So I would absolutely call out any awards or honours that you have. This is really can be anything from things that you've won from your peer groups at university. As I said, anything that you've been given from a community group or even from past roles. So really starting to call out those sort of awards and honours that you've achieved, and making sure that you highlight that to people, because that just gives you another chance to kind of showcase what you've done, and the type of work where you've been seen as a top achiever.
Danika, just a question on the chat from Danny. Do you believe LinkedIn Premium is good value? It seems expensive. And I guess I would just add to that, like, is it really worth for a student or graduate especially? What are your thoughts?
It depends on what you want to do with your job search. I mean, it's depends on what you're looking to do with it. So it absolutely provides you more insight around roles and job applications, but it's probably not something you need to have turned on all the time unless you're maybe in that month or two that you're actively applying for a role.
I'm afraid to say this because there's a lot of LinkedIn people on this chat, but I think there's a trial version as well for premium.
Yes, there is. Yeah. So,
yeah.
Premium, you get your first month free.
Yeah.
And then after that, you get charged month by month. So you can turn it on and off at any time. I would say it adds value if you're really actively looking for a role, but you definitely don't need to have it turned on, and you definitely don't need to be paying for it. I would say just as a matter of course.
Thank you. And just another one from Alex. What about the courses section? Would you fill it out with all the uni courses you had?
No. So this is licenses and certifications. If you wanted to put in information around the courses that you did within, so you've got degree, field of study, you can also put in activities, and then in description, I would list out any of the courses that you wanted to call out, absolutely, in that section. So it's always associated with your primary qualification.
Thanks, Danika.
Is there any other questions around the profile that anybody else wanted to ask, or any sort of questions here before we move on to the next section?
Yes, hello, I have a question.
Yes, hi.
Hi. With the education section, would you, in terms of like listing your courses in the description, if you wanted to do that, would you have to put your grades next to it, or just that you're qualified and that you've passed that course?
I would just put the courses that you've done. The grade section
Okay,
is for your overall GPA, if you wanted to include that.
Gotcha. Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm so old, my courses don't have GPAs for some of them because it never used to be a thing.
Okay, yeah, fair. Okay, thank you.
Alison's like, yeah, I remember that. We didn't do that like 10, 20 years ago. Any other questions?
I think Irina, did you have a question?
Yeah.
Yes, I have two questions, if it's not too much. The first is that I speak several languages, so where would I put that? Do you think in the skills or education?
Yeah, no, there's a whole profile section for languages. Okay. I don't have it up because I don't speak any other languages, but if I just click on my edit profile, where's the language section come up? Add profile section here. You can actually put in under the core, you can go recommended, you can do an additional, and under here you've got add languages.
Right.
So I don't speak any languages. So here you can list all your languages and you can put your proficiency in as well. So yeah, if you've got multiple languages that you speak, absolutely highlight that. You'd be surprised how many employers that I work with that ask me about people with linguistic skills or multi-language capability.
Great, thank you. And the other one is that at some point I was involved in feminist club, and I'm very gender oriented in my studies, and I was advised not to highlight that in my CV because some employers might see it as problematic. So I was wondering, what is your view on this?
I would say that shouldn't be problematic at all. I'd be very surprised if there would be an employer that would find that problematic. I would absolutely include that on your LinkedIn profile. I think that's a really great quality. If I look at every employer's vision, values, and requirements around diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging, I would absolutely say that that would be a key differentiator in market for you and will be incredibly beneficial and a highly valued skill for any employer.
Right. Thank you.
Is there any other questions on profile before I move on to the next section? In the chat, Shah?
No, I think we're good. Yeah.
Great. I always get nervous that I move on too fast. So once you've kind of built your profile, the next thing to start doing is really start thinking about how you can build your credibility for who you say you are on the platform, and really start to kind of, I guess, get involved in the feed. I think everybody here, you know, has a social media profile on another platform. So there is the kind of having a look at what's around, but then there's also contributing and posting content on that platform. So when we talk about starting to build that credibility and what you need to start thinking about on LinkedIn, there's kind of 4 sort of key rules. One is to think about who you want your audience to be or your community to be on LinkedIn. Sorry, excuse me. So really be clear on who that is. And more importantly, make sure you're really clear on what you want them to understand about you and the impact that that's going to have on your personal brand. So for example, here, if I was a commerce student who was interested in economics, I would probably want to make sure that I was following economic publications. I would absolutely make sure I was connecting with thought leaders on economics and following them. And I would absolutely also be making sure that I was connecting with other people in my net and creating my network of people who are looking at economics, and then following companies that I'd be interested in working for. On the flip side of that, I'd also want to be starting to like, comment, share posts or articles around things that I was interested in around economics. So let's just say, you know, I really want to work for a government organization, and there was recently Ministry of Social Development posted some information about the jobless rate. That might be a post from them that I would share on my profile to say, hey, this is just being published. This is what I think about that, and this is why I think it's important for New Zealand, for example. The second thing is to kind of think about the story that you're telling. I know we've gone through the profile in quite a little bit of detail, but think of that as the start of your story, and then think about the content that you're liking, commenting, engaging, sharing, or even creating or writing blogs online as how you're bringing that story to life to kind of prove that this is a really authentic story for you. So one of the things in the framework that's going to be shared around post this is to be really clear on what you're going to like, comment, share, and create on platform, because that can really help start to kind of build that story for you and bring what you're saying in your profile to, I guess, bring to life. The other thing to always think about is how to brand yourself within the community. So I can even just give an example that I did the other day. You guys posted a lovely post about the session today. And instead of like sharing that post, I decided to make a comment in that post. And that was really showing my community that I'm out and about talking to different people about LinkedIn and the benefits of LinkedIn without me having to do a post around, hey, guess what? I did a session today with the University of Canterbury students. It was great. So that's how I'm thinking about how you can sort of leverage that community. And anything that you can do to be a little bit generous with your time, particularly as most of you are kind of finishing up study, how can you be really generous with your time? How can you kind of go to events or volunteer at events for the university? How can you look at kind of speaking or speaking engagement, even if that's with small groups of other students? How can you do interviews, whether that's with student publications or anything like that? So anything that you can start to be generous with your time that feels authentic to you is really worthwhile doing. And my last tip around building credibility is consistency. Oops, sorry, excuse me. And being consistent, I always say, is not about posting 50 times a day, once in the morning, once in the afternoon. That's not what consistency is on LinkedIn. There's a lot of conjecture around how algorithm works, and we are not Instagram, we're not Facebook, we're not TikTok, we're a professional platform. So our algorithm works by your content will always be seen by the people in your network, your first person connections first. And then it will be based on what people are interested in or what they're commenting, liking, and engaging. So when we talk about being consistent, it's what's consistent for you. So if you go on the platform every day, great. If you can commit to posting once a month, perfect as well. Consistency is about consistency for you. And I'll just give you an example from me. So I'm obviously on the platform every day. I work for LinkedIn. It'd be a bit scary if I wasn't, but I have a really clear like, comment, and share strategy. So I like anything that's to do with jobs. So anytime anyone in my network posts a job, I absolutely like that. I congratulate or comment on anything when people are sharing achievements or latest things that they're doing, or really kind of key things that they're working on. So that's all about my network. And then I share content that's specific to my role, that's around cutting edge or leading insights. And I always have an economic twist on that because that's an area that I'm really passionate about. But I also create content around things that I'm seeing in the market that I want to make comment on, that I think are going to benefit a large group of people that I'm connected with or I'm following. So yeah, I think about it in those sorts of ways. I actually only create content probably 3 or 4 times a year. It's not something I'm doing every day. I don't have time, but that's consistent for me. I share a post at least once every fortnight. Lauren will know that. She'll probably see them up all the time. But I like, comment and on content every single day, because that's part of, you know, what I do on platform. Does that make sense? Is there any questions here around the building credibility piece? No. Great. And then the last kind of section to talk about is how to grow engagement. So there's a few tips here around making sure that you're growing your engagement on platform. So the first one is enabling following and connecting. And that's done by making sure your profile is public. So I would 100% say if you really want to grow your engagement on platform, you need to have a public profile. However, you can control what's seen on your profile if you like. If you have a public profile, you can actually enable followers and connecting. And the difference between following and connecting is really interesting. So followers are people who follow you. And that means that they see all of your content in their newsfeed, but as a follow-up, I don't see any of your content. Connecting is someone I'm a first person connection to, and we both see each other's content in our newsfeed. So that's the difference between following and connecting. I have following turned on because I have a lot of connections, but I only have my first person connections now as people I've actually met or that I actually work with, only because I've got around like 5,000 connections and it gets a bit too much. Whereas followers, I'm like, it doesn't matter, anyone can follow me. The other thing around engagement is 2 other key tips here. Make sure you use hashtags. I will preface this is we are not Instagram. It is not hashtag best life, hashtag dogs, hashtag dogs of Instagram. It is not that. It's not 50 hashtags. I would limit this to 3 to 4 hashtags max. Always think about this in context of your post as well. It's not about, like, as I said, with Instagram, the like consistent hashtags across all your posts, and same with Facebook and Twitter. Often you'll want to have consistent hashtags on those to build engagement. LinkedIn is around engagement building on the content of what you're doing and the connection between that. That's what drives engagement in the feed. So always think about the top 3 to 4 max hashtags that are related to the content you're posting about. Also, don't forget to @. So if you're talking about a company or a person, make sure you @ them. The reason for this is if you @ somebody or @ an organization, that post will be seen by all of their followers or all of their connections too. So it's just a way to simply build engagement and get excited. And you guys are really lucky because you have the University of Canterbury. So if you're doing something on campus and you @ the University of Canterbury, you're going to tap into all of their followers. So this is a really easy way to build engagement and build your personal brand without having to do a lot of work. And my final tip here around growing engagement is really about asking for interaction. If you want people to like, comment, or share the content that you're posting, you need to ask them to do that. Who here just kind of scrolls through their feed a bit mindlessly on any social platform? Yeah, I think it's like comment, everyone's like, yeah, I do that, okay. If you think about the posts that you stop on or the posts that you engage with from friends, it's usually when they're asking something, or saying, hey, what do you think about this? And asking for your interaction. It's no different with LinkedIn. If you want people to like, comment, or share, you definitely need to ask for that interaction. Is there any questions around growing engagement? And here's just a few tips for if you're still a bit stuck around what to start posting on LinkedIn. Number one tip, share what you're reading. If you guys probably do more reading than anybody else around really interesting things that nobody else is reading. Absolutely share what you're reading. It's a really simple way to kind of highlight the work that you're doing, what you're studying, or what you're interested in from the studies that you're doing. The other one is around sort of, we call it debunking news or debunking rumor. So if you see a news story that's like something that you're studying, you can either make a comment on that or say, hey, actually this area I've noticed based on X, Y, and Z is different. The other thing I always say is the kind of share a sneak peek behind the curtain. So if you're doing things, particularly at uni, you might want to do like in class doing activities. You might want to show what the social clubs that you're part of are doing or creating. You might want to show what's happening from a work experience perspective, just kind of giving people a sneak peek behind kind of the typical things that they would see on LinkedIn. The other super easy one is to respond to news and events in the industries that you're interested in. So I gave that example from, Ministry of Social Development. They might be releasing some statistics around the jobless rate, sharing that or responding to that in a way is really, really something that's simple to do. And it can be done in a simple sentence here. And then the other thing you can do is, particularly if you do have a job or you are working, the companies that you work for will be posting on LinkedIn all the time. So you can absolutely share company news or milestones, even if it's not in the kind of field that you're looking for or you're looking for a new role in, but just kind of showing employers that you're really enthusiastic around them and the work that your company is doing can be important. And if you think about it, like the people that are going to be interviewing you are from HR. And if you're liking HR content from the company that you already work from, that's a pretty big tick for them. And then that was it. Is there any other questions? I know that we're almost at time. Is there any other questions or anything else that I can answer while you've got me?
Any questions?
Oh, yeah.
I just want to say thanks so much for the presentation. Most useful.
Yeah. Hopefully this gets you all inspired about the opportunities that are out there for you. I know that, you're all studying really hard and the end of your qualifications can look really far away and that next step can feel even further away. But, this is just a really great platform and way for you to start to build that professional profile and really start to bring the great work that you've been doing over the last couple of years to life in a really authentic way for you. So yeah, hopefully it's just opened your eyes a little bit.
Thank you.
Danika, can I just say on behalf of the Postgrad Research Office, thank you so much, Saha, Danika and Lauren. Really, really insightful information. And we may see some of you on Thursday as well.
Yeah, Thursday session will take a bit more of a deep dive into kind of who's hiring postgrads and things like that. But this kind of gives you a great start.
Thank you so much, Danika. That was super useful. We've got so many thank yous on the chat for you as well. It was clear and it was interactive, valuable information. So really, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. Just for those who are already still here, we do run drop-in sessions every Tuesday and Thursday with the careers team. So if you want a quick second a review on your LinkedIn profile, we're happy to do that for you. And like I said, this session will be available on YouTube if you want to refer back to Danika's tips and tricks as well. Thank you so much, Danika. This was great.
Thanks, guys, and good luck and all the best with it. Can't wait to see you all on LinkedIn.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
you.
Bye.